Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we are going to be taking a look at Remark Holdings, a company trying to make waves in the AI and video analytics space. We'll try to break down exactly what they do, if it's a business that is worth investing in, and what the key factors are that you should be thinking about if you are considering making an investment. To do this, we've got a really in-depth investment analysis report that we're going to try and break down today. And this report views Remark Holdings through the lens of Warren Buffett's investment principles. To help us break all this down, I've got an expert analyst here with me today, ready to jump in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first things first. What exactly is it that Remark Holdings does?
Well, they develop and deploy AI-powered video analytics. Basically, you can think of it as software that can understand what is happening in video footage, and it can provide insights that would be impossible for a human to be able to catch.
So like security cameras, but on steroids?
It can be used for security, but it can also be used for a lot more than that. Remember in the movie Minority Report, how they had those personalized ads? Remark's AI can analyze customer behavior in retail stores, so a business can really understand patterns and optimize their strategies. They're also using this tech to look at risk and fintech, and even to try to spot security threats in public spaces.
Okay, so that sounds pretty interesting. But how big is the market for this kind of technology? I mean, are we talking about a small pond or a vast ocean of opportunity?
No, it's a pretty big ocean, and it's getting bigger quickly. The video analytics market is already worth billions of dollars, and it's projected to grow at a crazy rate over the next 10 years or so.
Wow, so there's a ton of potential there for a company like Remark.
Mhm.
But I imagine they must be facing a lot of competition, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of big players in this space already. Companies like IBM, Cisco, Honeywell, they're all trying to get a bigger piece of the pie. And then on top of that, you've got all these smaller AI startups that are popping up all over the place.
So how is Remark Holdings trying to stand out from the crowd in such a competitive market?
Well, one of their biggest advantages is that they partnered up with Microsoft. They're going to market their AI platform, Remark AI, through the Azure marketplace. That gives them access to a really huge number of potential customers. And it also just makes them seem more credible than some smaller player that nobody's ever heard of.
Okay, so it sounds like they're trying to align themselves with a company that everybody already knows and trusts. That's a pretty smart move. But partnerships aside, let's talk about Remark Holdings' management team. Who's running the show here? And what kind of track record do they have?
The CEO, Kai-Shing Tao, has been leading the company since 2012. He's the one who decided to shift the company to focus on AI. He even sold off some assets like Vegas.com to free up capital for this new direction.
That sounds like it was a risky move. Did it end up paying off?
It's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. I mean, Tao has shown that he has vision and can adapt to changing markets. But financially, Remark Holdings has been struggling.
That doesn't sound too good. Just how bad are we talking here?
Well, the numbers aren't great. Their market cap is tiny. We're talking single-digit millions. Their revenue has been declining. And their profit margins are way in the negative.
Wait, they have negative profit margins? That means they're losing money on every sale. So how are they even still in business?
Well, they've been doing a lot of debt restructuring, selling off assets and trying to raise even more money. But these are all just short-term fixes.
Okay, so they might not be drowning just yet, but it definitely sounds like they're barely keeping their heads above water. I'm a little worried about this one.
Yeah, their financial situation is definitely a big concern. It really raises questions about whether they'll be able to stay in business over the long term, even with a product that seems pretty promising and a partnership with a giant like Microsoft.
So we've got a company with some interesting AI technology. They're operating in a rapidly growing market, but their financials are about as stable as a house of cards. I think we need to dig a little deeper to see if there's any hope for Remark Holdings. But first, we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned, and we will be right back with the rest of this story.
All right, so let's talk about how the market is viewing Remark Holdings. Investor sentiment is really important, especially for a company that's having some financial troubles.
Yeah, so are investors excited about Remark Holdings, or are they jumping ship?
I think a lot of investors are heading for the lifeboats. I mean, their stock price has been going down for years, and in the past year, it's really taken a nosedive. They even got delisted from NASDAQ. They're trading over the counter now.
Ouch. Yeah, getting delisted is never a good sign. Doesn't that hurt their credibility?
It definitely makes investors nervous.
Makes sense.
And it also makes it harder for them to attract big institutional investors. A lot of those guys won't touch OTC stocks.
But haven't there been some good news stories about Remark Holdings, too? Like, didn't their stock jump when they announced that partnership with Microsoft?
Yeah, they have had a few good moments when they announced the Microsoft deal, and when they landed a few big contracts, their stock did go up,
Right.
but it never lasted.
So it's like they get a little bit of good news, and then the bad news just keeps dragging them back down.
Pretty much. The market just doesn't seem to believe that Remark Holdings can turn things around.
Okay, so the market sentiment is not looking good. Let's move on to their ownership structure.
Yeah.
Who are the major players that have control over the company?
Well, Remark Holdings actually has a very dispersed ownership structure, which is pretty common for struggling microcap companies. Institutional ownership is very low, less than 10%.
So we're not talking about a situation where some big investment firm is calling the shots.
Not at all. And like we talked about before, insider ownership is also super low. Management owns less than 2% of the company.
So if institutions and management don't own the company, who does?
Mostly just a bunch of individual investors.
Interesting.
It's a really fragmented shareholder base.
So the fate of the company is in the hands of all these individual investors. That seems like a recipe for chaos.
It can be. But wait, there is one other player we need to mention.
Oh yeah, who's that?
That distressed debt fund, Mudrick Capital.
Oh right, what about them?
Well, remember how Remark Holdings had to do that debt for equity swap? That gave Mudrick almost 10% ownership.
Wow, so they're the biggest shareholder.
By far, yeah.
Yeah.
They're the closest thing Remark Holdings has to a major institutional investor.
I wonder what that means for the company.
It's hard to say for sure. Mudrick specializes in distressed debt.
Right.
So their goals might be different than a typical investor.
In what way?
Well, they might be hoping to make a quick profit if Remark Holdings restructures or gets acquired.
So they might not be interested in the company's long-term success.
Not necessarily, but they also might try to influence the company's direction.
And that could be good or bad, I guess, depending on what they try to do.
Exactly. It's a bit of a wild card.
Okay, so we've got a company with low market sentiment, an ownership structure that is all over the place, and a distressed debt fund that could be a friend or a foe. This is getting pretty complicated. Maybe we can use a SWOT analysis to try to make sense of it all.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. A SWOT analysis can give us a really clear picture of where Remark Holdings stands.
Okay, so let's start with the strengths. What are Remark Holdings doing well?
Well, one of their biggest strengths is their expertise in AI. They have a team of really talented engineers and data scientists, and they've developed some really sophisticated algorithms for video analytics.
So their tech is legit.
Oh yeah, they've even got patents for their tech.
Nice.
Another strength is the variety of products they offer.
Meaning?
Well, they've got solutions for all kinds of different industries.
Okay.
Retail education, fintech, public safety, you name it.
Wow, so they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And of course, we have to mention the Microsoft partnership again.
Right, that's a big one.
Having access to the Azure platform is a major advantage.
Okay, so they've got some good things going for them. But I know we can't ignore the elephant in the room, their financial situation.
Their finances are definitely their biggest weakness.
Without a doubt.
We already talked about their low revenue, their negative profit margins, and their lack of cash.
Right.
But they also just don't have the same economies of scale as their bigger competitors.
So even if they could start generating more revenue, it would be harder for them to make a profit.
That's right.
It's like they're fighting an uphill battle with one hand tied behind their back.
Yeah, pretty much.
So besides the financials, are there any other weaknesses that investors should be aware of?
Well, they are pretty reliant on third-party platforms.
Like Microsoft Azure.
Right.
And what's wrong with that?
Well, it's great for reach.
I mean, it gives them access to a huge market.
Exactly. But it also makes them dependent on another company.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
If Microsoft decides to change their strategy or promote a competitor,
That could really hurt Remark Holdings.
definitely.
Anything else?
Also, I think they need to work on their marketing.
How so?
Well, nobody really knows who they are,
That's a problem.
especially when you're going up against companies like IBM and Cisco.
Yeah, they've got brand recognition on their side.
Nah, exactly.
So it sounds like Remark Holdings is this little underdog company. They've got a great product, but nobody knows who they are.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And on top of that, they're struggling to make ends meet.
It's not an easy situation.
Okay, so we've talked about their strengths and their weaknesses. What about opportunities? Are there any bright spots on the horizon for Remark Holdings?
Well, I think their biggest opportunity is the overall growth of the AI market.
Right. We talked about how this market is expected to explode in the coming years.
Exactly. So if Remark Holdings can just find a niche where they can really excel,
They might be able to ride that wave of growth.
that's the hope.
But what kind of niche are we talking about here?
Well, I think they have a real opportunity in the education market.
Really?
Yeah, you know that contract they got with the Clark County School District?
Yeah.
I think that could be a great launching pad for them.
How so?
Well, sadly, school safety is becoming a bigger and bigger issue.
It's true.
And Remark Holdings AI could be a really valuable tool for schools that are looking to improve security.
That's a really interesting point.
So, it's a sad situation, but
Yeah.
Remark Holdings might be able to capitalize on it.
So they could become the go-to company for school safety solutions.
Possibly.
That would be a huge opportunity.
Yeah, but it's not going to be easy.
Why not?
Well, first of all, they need to execute perfectly on that contract with Clark County.
Make sure there are no hiccups.
Exactly. They need to
Right.
prove that they can deliver.
And then use that to get more contracts with other schools.
Right.
And I guess the Microsoft partnership could help with that too.
Yeah, it gives them a lot of credibility.
But they still need to make sure they leverage it effectively.
Yeah, for sure.
So they've got a lot of work to do.
They do.
Okay, so we've talked about the good stuff, the strengths and opportunities. Now let's get to the bad stuff. What are the biggest threats facing Remark Holdings?
Well, the most obvious threat is their financial situation.
Right. They're running out of money.
Yeah. And if they can't secure more funding soon...
They might have to shut down.
Exactly.
And even if they do manage to get more funding?
It'll probably come at the cost of diluting existing shareholders.
So investors could end up owning a smaller and smaller piece of the company.
Yeah, that's a real risk.
What else?
Well, even if they do get more funding and they do secure new contracts, there's no guarantee that they can actually execute on those contracts.
You mean they might not be able to deliver what they promise?
Right.
What makes you think that?
Well, they just haven't been very good at turning their technology into profits.
So they've got the tech, but they don't know how to make money from it.
That's one way to look at it. There's also the threat of competition.
Right. We
But-
talked about all those big companies and startups
And, there's always a risk that some new company will come along.
with even better AI technology.
And that could put Remark Holdings out of business.
It's like they're trying to sail through a hurricane.
It's definitely a tough environment.
Okay, so they're running out of money. They might not be able to execute on their contracts, and they're facing cutthroat competition.
Yeah, those are some of the biggest risks.
Anything else I should be worried about?
Well, there are also the usual risks that come with investing in microcap stocks.
Like what?
Well, their stock price is super volatile.
Okay.
There's not a lot of liquidity.
Meaning it can be hard to buy or sell the stock.
Right. And they're also more vulnerable to manipulation.
So it sounds like Remark Holdings is facing an uphill battle.
They are.
But before we give up on them completely, I want to go back to that idea we talked about earlier, about them becoming the leading provider of school safety solutions.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
It seems like a real possibility.
It does.
I mean, school safety is only going to become more important.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And if Remark Holdings can convince school districts that their AI can help,
That could be a huge win for them.
it would be a win for everyone, really.
Yeah, safer schools would be a good thing.
Okay, so that's where we're going to leave it for today. We've taken a deep dive into Remark Holdings. We've looked at their business, their financials, market sentiment, ownership structure, their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we've even explored the possibility of them becoming a major player in the school safety market. Now it's up to you to decide what you think. Is Remark Holdings a diamond in the rough? Or are the risks just too great? We want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts and questions in the comments. And be sure to check out the episode description for links to all the sources we use for this deep dive.
Yeah, and if you're interested in learning more about AI-powered stock analysis, check out the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel.
Great suggestion. And one last thing. This deep dive was for informational purposes only. It's not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Remark Holdings. We hope you found it helpful. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and happy investing.